Welcome back to another episode of Sloppy Saturdays, and I'm joined here with my friend Kenneth Gruenfelder.
What's going on, everybody?
And today we are back and continuing our series on Pro Preview. Now, Pro Preview is basically just an episode where we go over a highly touted guy that just got drafted out of college and basically predict how he's going to fare in year one in the NFL. If you guys want to go back to any of our videos, or if you're listening on podcast, any of the episodes, we went over Jackson Dart, we went over Ashton Genty. Today we are going over, if you haven't seen by the title, Travis Hunter. Now I had to bring some backup for Travis Hunter because Travis Hunter is a guy that we have never seen anything like before. Obviously, you guys all watching know that. Even if you're not into college football, I feel like everybody knows Travis Hunter, what he was able to do in the college football world. Not only win a Heisman, but just be able to play pretty much every play of every game, not have a breather. He comes into the NFL, gets drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars at 2. They trade up to get him. Now, I don't expect Travis Hunter to be able to play every play like he did in college, but we do expect him to play a little bit on both sides of the ball. Let's go over how Travis Hunter got to the Jacksonville Jaguars first. So the Cleveland Browns went up to get him. Now, me and my buddy over here, we watched the NFL draft together actually, and we went to where we were going with our other friend as well. And I don't know if you remember, I remember him saying that the Browns might trade out of their pick. So when Travis Hunter was getting traded that night, I feel like the public only knew 3-4 hours before the draft started, right? Is that correct?
I feel like there was some speculation, like even before we got closer to the draft, that the Browns could potentially trade out, but
Yeah,
then it actually happened.
it definitely like heated up and then it like happened right away. I remember us all looking at the screen being like, what? The Jaguars are selecting now. So yeah, to go over that trade, what Cleveland got in return from that trade, they got the 1-5. Obviously, they moved back. They only moved back 3 spots, which wasn't bad. I remember us saying when the Browns were going to trade out of the pick, are you trading a premier pick at 2 to move back 10, 15 slots? They only moved back 3 slots, wasn't that bad. They draft Mason Graham, who I think is going to be a plug-and-play type of guy. Obviously, a standout guy, national champion at Michigan. They draft Quinshon Judkins, who we both like, who we saw play live at 36. Again, another a solid back for them. The Nick Chubb era is gone. They also go running back again as that era is gone. At 126 in this trade, they go with Dylan Sampson, standout running back at Tennessee. Dropped a little bit in this draft because his running back class was so loaded. And then obviously to have the first round pick next year from the Jacksonville Jaguars, that could be a huge pick or a low pick depending on how the Jacksonville Jaguars finish, what we predict them to do. When teams usually trade their first round pick in a following year, we see it more times, I feel like, in the NBA, but even in the NFL, when you're trading a future first, you're basically saying, hey, we're going to contend this year. We're not going to need this first. This first is going to be a back end. It's not going to be as valuable. But as we've seen with the Jaguars across our lifetime, they were good for like a couple years in our life, but haven't really been good. This could be a high pick in a huge quarterback draft, or they could possibly draft, again, a blue chip prospect at a different position. All going to depend on how the Jaguars finish. And then the Jaguars get Travis Hunter. They basically swap forts. They actually get a higher fort. They draft Bashel Tudin at Virginia Tech, who is a good running back. And then with their 6th-round pick from this trade, they draft Ryan Lane out of Navy, who I don't really know too much about. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Didn't really watch a lot of Navy football. But that was the likes of this trade. Now, Ken, how do you think this trade is going to fare? I feel like we talked about it. It's more like a time will tell type of thing. But I guess I'm basically asking you, do you think both teams got the right value on both sides?
Yeah, so I think with the Jaguars, I mean, they're kind of taking a gamble because, last year was a disaster of a season for them. Really nothing went right. And now you got this new regime in here. They wanted to make a big splash. And now you add one of the top players from this draft in Travis Hunter. And now you pair him up with someone you really like. Brian Thomas Jr. had a really good rookie season. So you pair them together. And now you're putting Trevor Lawrence in a good spot with two number one receivers, ideally, a 1A and a 1B. And, they're expecting to, you know, do a lot better, possibly contend. They do play in a weak division. I would still say the Texans are the best team, but, they aren't that far removed from leading this division. So, and you're bringing now in an offensive guy in Liam Cohen, and he did a great job over in Tampa. So you're hoping you get the same thing with Trevor Lawrence now in Jacksonville, adding Travis Hunter now to that receiving core. And then also if he's playing defense as well, that's a plus because the defense was also not good last year. Just everything just did not go right. And then for Cleveland, I mean, it was interesting going into this draft because, there was definitely many things they could have did with that pick. One of them was trading out. We talked about this. Could they take a quarterback? They did end up taking a couple of quarterbacks later in the draft. But, I think before, the night of the draft, there was speculation that maybe they could be a team that takes a quarterback with their first pick. Or maybe, they take Abdul Carter. There was many things they could have did, but, they ended up trading out of it. You end up getting a good player with the pick you traded down. You get Mason Graham, you put him on that defensive line with Myles Garrett. So that ended up panning out. And, I think they kind of just took a lot of chances with some of the other picks. I mean, they're taking two quarterbacks. They're hoping that one of them pans out. They have a very interesting quarterback room going into the year. Now with Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel both in the fold there. So, yeah, and like you said, the Nick Chubb era is over. They didn't bring him back. He signed recently with the Houston Texans. So, the Browns, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them because I don't think they necessarily have a bad roster. I think the defense is still good, and they do have some good players on the offense. Like Jerry Jeudy had a good year. I still don't expect them to win a lot of games just because I don't really know what's going to happen with the quarterback situation because not only do you have the two young guys there, you also have, Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. So it's just, I don't know I don't know who's going to end up coming out of that as a starter. I mean, I would lean more towards Flacco just to start off, but that's just me. I know we have a difference of opinion on that, but it was definitely one of the biggest things to come out of the draft. I mean, that was quite a way to start off the draft. But I think both teams, it could really work out for the Browns if the Jaguars end up not doing well because then they have that first round pick. I do think the Jaguars can be a little bit better than last year. But again, like you said, only time will tell.
I think the biggest thing, especially for the Browns, I think it's important for them to visualize what you have in that room. Even though they did take two quarterbacks, I feel like the investments were minimal. I mean, a third round pick is pretty significant. Fifth round pick, obviously, not as significant. But you're going to be coming to a draft with a Jaguars pick that we said has the potential at least to be high. And then you have your own pick where you don't have a quarterback right now. That pick could be high as well. So you could have two picks, maybe inside the top 10, top 15, potentially. And you might be in position to select the quarterback in next year's draft. I think what they said in this draft was hey, we know we need a quarterback now. We like the quarterback class a little better next year. They're setting the deck up for next year. If something works out with these young quarterbacks, great, and they find their guy. They don't need to do that. But I think they're looking more towards next year. But they have to put these rookies on the field eventually to see what they have. I mean, you drafted two quarterbacks there. And then, like you said, with the two running backs as well, don't really mind that as much. You got off the Nick Chubb era. Again, everybody in the NFL, unless you have a Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, goes running back by committee, split back, something where you use 2-3 backs in an offense. So isn't as bad, especially in a loaded running back draft class. You do get a lot of value with a lot of these guys sliding. Now, enough with the Browns. This isn't what this video is about. Let's get into Travis Hunter. So Travis Hunter, like we said, he wants to play both ways in the NFL. He played every snap pretty much in college. Now, the difference is with the NFL, especially him playing in Colorado in the Big 12, he's just not going to be able, in my opinion, to be able to play every snap in both sides and be able to have that pace because, again, the receivers you're guarding in college, the receivers you're guarding in college and the cornerbacks you're going up against in a lot of these games don't compare to the NFL. You're not going to be able to guard Tyreek Hill and then get guarded by Jalen Ramsey. You're not going to be able to do that in the course of a game. That is just absolutely insane. but the Jaguars seem committed already into playing him on both sides. Now, we said originally, before Travis Hunter even got drafted, I'm pretty sure me and you both agreed on it. He should play defense almost the whole way and then come in on offense, because offense, again, you could come in sporadically, be used, and it works. I mean, we've seen it with Deion Sanders on the Cowboys. He came in here and there on offense. You could come in on offense as a spark player, come in for a couple of plays and bring a spark to an offense, but to not play cornerback consistently, I feel like cornerback is more of a rhythm position. Like, you got to be in there every single play pretty much. And it seems like the Jaguars are doing the opposite from what we know. They say that they're using him more on offense and then sprinkling him in on defense. Now, me and you, I'm pretty sure, again, we both have the same opinion on this. A lot of the Travis Hunter using him on offense type of thing is just trying to get the most out of Trevor Lawrence. I think the most valuable thing to this franchise is proving that that contract was worth it and getting Trevor Lawrence to a franchise quarterback. When you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars and the 2 picks they selected, you could argue they drafted the 2 most hyped players in the last 5 years. Again, I don't remember a quarterback being as hyped as Trevor Lawrence coming in since Andrew Luck. Travis Hunter, again, something we have never seen before. So they're pretty much making the right picks. Again, I don't like the Trayvon Walker pick, but that's another story. I don't think anybody really liked that one at the time. Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, a couple of guys were more highly touted. They went with him. So that was, I guess, the wrong pick when they had the number 1 back-to-back years. But for Travis Hunter, what do you expect the distribution to be like on offense and defense? And I feel like nobody really knows truly, and we could look at this video in a year and be completely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really. I mean, like you're saying that they're, it's kind of going to be the reverse, where like he's going to be playing, more so on offense, and then they sprinkle him in on defense. Like I feel like we would have it flip flopped, where yeah, you mix him in, put him in some packages on offense, but yeah, I think they'll probably learn quickly, and I think they'll make the adjustments that he's not going to be able to do both. Like you said, with the receivers now that he's going to be matching up against, it's going to be a lot different. It's going to be a rude awakening. It's going to be your welcome to the NFL moment, trying to do both consistently. So I do think at some point Jacksonville probably, like maybe even during the season, that you're going to see him probably, like whether it's less on defense and more on offense, or if he's playing corner really well, then like we said, you have him playing corner and then you mix him in on offense. But if you, I mean, they want to make sure that Trevor Lawrence has as many weapons as he has at his disposal, so he can go out and have a good year. So yeah, it really is kind of interesting what they could do with Travis Hunter. But like I said, the defense was not very good last year, so they really need all the help they can get. And if Travis Hunter could help out in that secondary and play at a high level, and he proves us wrong and he could do both, then that's a plus. But I think they're going to have to make adjustments, and more so you'll probably see him playing more on offense, because I think that's where they're going to need him to help Trevor Lawrence obviously have a bounce back year.
Now, the thing, this is kind of like a weird take I have on it as well. Now, for Travis Hunter, compared to other players that we have ever seen, when you're drafting a player out of position, they either usually boom or bust. For Travis Hunter, I feel like you have 2 chances for this guy to boom or bust. He could be a great receiver, not a great corner corner, not a great receiver. I feel like also a lot of it too is balancing out him getting reps on both sides and really seeing where he excels in the NFL. Now, I don't think he's going to bust on either side, but maybe you should play him based on what impact he makes on each side. Maybe he makes way more of an impact and he translates better to the NFL as a receiver than he does a corner, or vice versa. Do you think there's any chance where they have this blueprint now where he's going to play more offense, but maybe possibly he's a better corner than a receiver, and then maybe he switches later in his career? Do you think there's any chance of like movement where maybe some years he does one thing, some years he does another, until he really figures it out?
I think anything's on the table. I think at least like when you look on the offensive side of the ball, like they already have that. Well, I mean, I know he's only going into his second year, but they do have that established wide receiver one in Brian Thomas Jr. So at least you have him on that side of the ball. Whereas when you look at, the Jaguars defense, the secondary needs some work. Obviously, this isn't the secondary they had back during the Jacksonville days when they made it to the AFC Championship game. So you kind of need that stud out in the secondary. So like at least like on offense, like I said, you have Brian Thomas Jr. Travis Hunter can be that 1B to his 1A. But yeah, I mean, I think that there everything is on the table, and we're gonna see that. I mean, I would guess he's probably gonna get some snaps in preseason, so we get like a little bit of a glimpse into what we're gonna see. Maybe not, but I would like to see that just so we kind of get a preview of what we could possibly get during the season. But yeah, I mean, look, he's got the talent, so there he's going to be able to. I would think he's going to be able to figure it out. And like I said, if you get to the middle of the year, if he's excelling more in one position than the other, then you lean more into that. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. So we'll see.
It's interesting to see as well because even for the Jacksonville Jaguars, like we said, they want to get the most out of Trevor Lawrence. But at the same time, I mean, you've been saying consistently throughout this video, it seems like they really need more to help on defense. Like you have this complete X in Brian Thomas Jr. and receivers. I feel like are a position where time you could tell midway through year one if this guy's going to be a legit guy, top receiver in the NFL. And we saw that with Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, this is a guy that was third in receiving yards in the NFL. A guy that's not only with his size but his burst, he could do pretty much everything. Now the receiver room isn't as deep as well. I mean, when you look, they added Diami Brown too, so it's probably going to be BTJ, Diami Brown, Travis Hunter. That would be the three. I mean, they have Parker Washington, Austin Trammell, Joshua Cephas. Like I don't really see much else in this receiver room. So again, it's not like they don't need a receiver. They definitely do. Now, I feel like personally, we've heard it. Travis Hunter has been staying late in defensive meetings because that's the biggest issue with this too. Like for these practices, offense and defense, like they're working out. So it's like you got to pick a side in practice too. Like you can't get equal work in practice. It's just a complete unique situation. Apparently, he's been staying late, putting the work in. Apparently, he's been learning from Brian Thomas Jr. as well. Now, the thing is with Travis Hunter in this offense, very uniquely, like we thought if he was going to go to the Browns. I mean, if it was to the Giants, kind of would have been the same thing. But if he would have went to the Browns, like he would have probably been the number one guy. I mean, they have Judy, but where you're with Brian Thomas Jr., like Brian Thomas Jr. is a guy that's going to be a top receiver in the league for a long time. Even if Travis Hunter reaches height of the receiver, he still might not be as good as Brian Thomas Jr. So, how much do you think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to relieve the pressure for Travis Hunter not to have to come in and be the guy on this offense?
Well, I mean, I think a ton, and he's coming off of a really good rookie season. And, look at what he had to deal with. I mean, Trevor Lawrence once again was hurt. So you had Mac Jones coming in and playing quarterback, and he was still putting up big numbers. So, having that guy opposite of you definitely does take a lot of pressure off of you. And I mean, it might be a little bit different when he's playing on defense, but having that added weapon there, and let's see what the Jaguars get out of this rushing attack as well. Hopefully this offense can be more balanced this year as too. That's the other thing because I mean you saw Travis Etienne have a big year, not last year but the year prior, and then he kind of just disappeared. So and you want to have that again for your young quarterback. And that's why they were good a couple years ago when they made the playoffs too. So yeah, I mean, if you didn't have Brian Thomas Jr., that then yeah, there's a lot of pressure for you to succeed, for your young quarterback. But yeah, no, I mean, having Brian Thomas Jr. there is a huge plus for him, and you could learn things from him, obviously, with his 1 year of experience under his belt. So, like you said, so
It's going to be very interesting to see. Obviously, like we said, Trevor Lawrence, one of the most hyped quarterbacks coming out. This is a make or break year for him. And then Brian Thomas Jr., you could argue top 2 or 3 picks out of that first round last year. one of the probably the best pick you could have possibly made at your spot. And then you draft Travis Hunter, one of the most hyped players possible. Now getting into Travis Hunter, we discussed how he's going to fit in the offense, how he's going to fit on this defense, the workload. Let's give a prediction on the Jaguars, but not only that, let's give a prediction on Travis Hunter and his yards, his touchdowns, what he could end with. Now, for me personally, I think even if they're going to use him more on offense, it's still not going to be a full workload. Plus, you got to factor in that him not being on offense every single touch, he's not, I feel like he's not going to be able to boom as much as they got that's in that offense all the time, just getting the constant reps. I had something, I think he's going to have around 800 yards and he's going to have 6, 7 touchdowns. That's like my personal prediction because, again, he's not going to be on his offense, not going to have full workload. Obviously, he's a great talent, but just getting adjusted to the NFL on offense, I just think not being in there all the time is going to hamper him a little bit when it comes to what his actual final stats are going to be. And for the Jaguars, again, I feel like they're another team. We talked about the Bears previously in your episode. They're one of those teams with just a drastic amount of outcomes. I don't think they finish any lower than 2 in this division, really. I just don't trust what the Colts have with their quarterback room. Tennessee, again, I just think Cam Ward's year 1 and them being the worst team last year, I don't think they're going to finish above Jacksonville as well. And then for the Texans, we know they've had some injuries. Diggs left. I don't know what Tank Dell's going to be. And then they drafted 2 receivers. So, again, I guess you would have to go with the Texans 1. But if we see Trevor Lawrence really boom and Travis Hunter boom, I think it's going to be a fight for a number 1 spot. You'd have to give it to the Texans right now, but they're not like a solid number 1 that you're going to sit there and say there's no doubt they finish at number 1 compared to other teams. So I think it's going to be a fight for the number 1. What do you think Travis Hunter's final stats are going to be, and how do you think this Jacksonville Jaguars team is going to fare?
Yeah, so I'm kind of like you. I was thinking like I was going through numbers in my head. I was like at first like 600, maybe like 750 to 800, like you were saying, and then yeah, touchdowns is around the same too, around 6 to 7, as well. So and because the other thing too is not only is he going to be playing multiple positions, he's not going to be on offense every single time, taking a breather. Again, you got Brian Thomas Jr. who's going to be taking the bulk of the workload as the number 1 receiver. And then in the big picture, and we'll go over this on my episode too, I do agree with how you have the division laid out. I think it's definitely closer than you think with the Colts and the Jaguars, despite the quarterback issues that they have. I mean, they did still win 8 games last year. I mean, I do like the pieces that they have on offense, and some of the improvements they made on defense as well in the secondary. So, I mean, it's going to come down to what happens with the quarterback play, but I think it's going to be those two fighting for 2nd and 3rd in the division. Titans got a rookie quarterback, so yeah, you would probably rank them last. The Texans, I mean, I think the Texans have the best defense in that division, with the 2 edge rushers, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, and then of course you got Stingley in the backfield. And I'm hoping for a better year out of CJ Stroud. So yeah, they're going to be at 1. Jaguars is going to be interesting. I think they could definitely win more games than last year. The Liam Cohen hire, I know his press conference was a little cringe, as they like to say, but like I said before, he did do well in Tampa as the OC with Baker Mayfield. So I think you'll definitely see improvements out of this offense. They got to protect Trevor Lawrence. That's a big thing. This offensive line has not been good. Keep him upright. That's one of the reasons why it hasn't really worked out is because he's hurt, because he's been taking a lot of hits. I mean, there was the hit against the Texans. He got a concussion, getting knocked out of the game there. So, I think they could compete for this division if you can get a big year out of Trevor Lawrence, but we'll have to see. I mean, this AFC is a gauntlet in itself. So, I know we talked about this on my episode with the NFC South, but it's one of those things where if you don't win the division, you're probably not getting in. So, yeah. So we'll have to see. But, yeah, I think like you said, probably around second and third. Could be fighting for the division. We'll have to see. The defense to me is still a major concern as well. But we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, if I were to bet on it as a huge Trevor Lawrence fan, I think that he makes this jump and they do win this division. But being politically correct, what the Texans have and just everything as a spread out team, you have to rank the Texans one. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. There's a ton of talent on the Jacksonville Jaguars team, a ton of eye popping talent. At worst, they should be a fun team with Brian Thomas Jr., with Travis Hunter, with Trevor Lawrence, and a huge year for Trevor Lawrence as well. That wraps up this episode on this Travis Hunter Pro Preview. Ken, you could plug in your podcast for the viewers as well, and we're ready to wrap this up.
Yeah, so like last time, it's Infinite Sports. The YouTube channel is Infinite Sports Official. We talk mainly football and baseball, but we also have, more specifically baseball, the Yankees, of course. But we also have some basketball sprinkled in as well. You could also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We got the socials up and running, and also wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to listen to us, you just look up Infinite Sports. Wherever you get your podcasts, we're on there as well.
That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays, this episode of Pro Preview. Thank you, Ken, for coming on. And Sloppy Saturdays is